Laura Bennett lived in a big house on the edge of the California hills. It was a beautiful place with tall windows that let sunlight pour into every room and gardens filled with flowers that bloomed all year round. People often said she had it all: money, success, and a life most could only dream of. But Laura didn't feel like she had everything. There was one thing missing, something money couldn't fix. Her son, Ethan, was 8 years old. He was a sweet boy with curly brown hair and bright blue eyes, but he didn't talk much. Ethan had autism, and while Laura loved him more than anything, there were days when she felt lost. She wanted to connect with him, to hear his voice, or see him smile because of something she did. But instead, Ethan stayed mostly quiet, speaking only a few words here and there and communicating mostly through gestures. Laura worked hard running her tech company, which she had built from scratch. Her long hours at work meant she wasn't always home, so she hired people to help take care of Ethan. Most of them came and went, unable to handle the challenges of caring for a child with special needs. Then one day, Emma arrived. Emma was different. She was in her late 30s with warm brown eyes and a calm way about her. She dressed simply, usually in jeans and a plain shirt, and spoke softly, almost as if she didn't want to disturb anyone. When Laura first met her, Emma seemed shy, almost nervous. But there was something kind and steady about her that made Laura trust her right away. At first, Emma's job was simple. She cleaned the house, cooked meals, and helped Ethan with his daily routine. She didn't try to push him too hard or change the way things were done. Instead, she watched carefully, learning how Ethan liked to spend his time and what made him comfortable. Slowly, she started spending more time with him, sitting quietly beside him while he played with blocks or flipping through picture books together. Over time, Laura noticed small changes in Ethan. He seemed calmer around Emma, less anxious. Sometimes, he would even laugh, a sound Laura hadn't heard enough of lately. One afternoon, she walked into the living room and saw Emma kneeling on the floor next to Ethan, showing him how to stack colorful plastic cups. Ethan giggled as one of the cups tipped over, and Emma clapped her hands, smiling wide. For a moment, Laura stood still, watching them. She felt a lump rise in her throat. This was what she'd been hoping for, a connection. But it wasn't until one evening, weeks later, that Laura truly understood just how special Emma was. She had been working late in her office, going over spreadsheets and answering emails. The house was quiet except for the soft hum of the air conditioner. Round about 9 o'clock, she decided to check on Ethan before heading to bed. As she approached his bedroom door, she heard voices coming from inside. Curious, Laura paused and listened. At first, she thought maybe Emma was reading a story to him. That wouldn't be unusual. Bedtime stories were part of their nightly routine. But then she realized the voice wasn't reading, it was teaching. And it wasn't just one language. She pushed the door open slightly and peeked inside. What she saw stopped her in her tracks. Emma sat cross-legged on the carpet facing Ethan, who was hugging his favorite stuffed bear. In front of them lay flashcards with pictures and words written in different scripts. Emma pointed to a card with an apple on it and said, "Pomme." Ethan repeated after her, his pronunciation clumsy but clear. Then Emma switched to another language, saying, "Manzana," and waited for Ethan to copy her again. Laura watched, astonished, as Emma moved smoothly from one language to the next. French became Spanish, which turned into Mandarin. German followed, then Hindi, Arabic, Russian, Japanese, and finally Swahili. Each word flowed effortlessly from Emma's lips, and each time, Ethan tried to repeat it. His attempts weren't perfect, but he was trying, and that alone was remarkable. For several minutes, Laura stood frozen, unsure what to do. She felt a mix of emotions swirling inside her: surprise, confusion, and even a little anger. Why hadn't Emma told her about this? Wasn't this something she should have known? But beneath those feelings was something else, something stronger. Hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, Emma had found a way to reach Ethan in a way no one else had. Finally, Emma glanced up and saw Laura standing in the doorway. Her face paled, and she quickly gathered the flashcards, stammered, "I can explain." Laura stepped into the room, her heart racing. "Explain what exactly?" she asked, her voice tight. "Why are you teaching my son 9 languages, without telling me?" Emma hesitated, clearly flustered. "I didn't mean to keep it from you," she said. "It's just, I noticed Ethan responds well to sounds and rhythms. Languages, they're like music to him. I thought it might help him." "Help him what?" Laura interrupted. "Speak? Communicate?" "Yes," Emma replied softly. "And more than that. Language isn't just about words, it's about understanding the world, about connecting with others. I thought if I could show him that, maybe he'd find a way to express himself." Laura stared at her, unsure whether to feel betrayed or grateful. On one hand, Emma had gone behind her back. On the other hand, she couldn't deny the progress she'd seen in Ethan recently. The calmness, the laughter, the occasional attempts to communicate, all of it added up to something real. After a long silence, Laura sighed and ran a hand through her hair. "This is a lot to process," she admitted. "But I need to know more. Who are you really? Where did you learn all these languages?" Emma looked down at her hands, twisting them nervously. "I grew up in Eastern Europe," she began. "My parents were linguists. They traveled a lot, studying languages and cultures. I learned early on how to pick up new languages quickly. Later I worked as a translator, but..." She trailed off, her voice faltering. "But what?" Laura pressed gently. Emma shook her head. "It's complicated. My past isn't important. What matters is helping Ethan." Laura studied her for a moment, weighing her options. Part of her wanted to demand answers, to dig deeper into Emma's mysterious background. But another part, the part that cared most about Ethan, knew that whatever Emma was doing, it was working. And that was worth exploring further. "All right," Laura said finally. "You can keep doing this, for now. But I want updates. I want to know everything. You're teaching him and how he's responding, understood?" Emma nodded, relief washing over her face. "Thank you," she whispered. As Laura left the room, her mind raced. She didn't know what to make of Emma yet, but one thing was certain. Her son was changing, and Emma was at the center of it. Whether that was a good thing or not remained to be seen. For now, though, Laura decided to give it a chance. After all, when it came to Ethan, she was willing to try anything. The next morning, Laura woke up with a heavy feeling in her chest. She had tossed and turned all night, replaying the scene from Ethan's bedroom over and over in her mind. Emma's calm voice switching between languages, Ethan's tentative attempts to mimic her. It was also unexpected. Laura couldn't shake the image of her son repeating foreign words, his face lighting up with curiosity. It was a side of him she hadn't seen before. After breakfast, Laura called Emma into the kitchen. The housekeeper walked in slowly, her hands clasped tightly together as if bracing herself for trouble. Laura gestured for her to sit at the table, then took a deep breath. "We need to talk," she said, her tone firm but not unkind. Emma nodded, her expression guarded. "I understand. I should have told you sooner." Laura leaned back in her chair, studying the woman across from her. "Start from the beginning. Who are you, really? And why do you know so many languages?" Emma hesitated, her fingers tracing the edge of the table. "I told you last night I grew up in Eastern Europe. My parents were linguists who traveled the world. They believed language was the key to understanding people and cultures. From a young age, I learned to pick up new languages quickly. By the time I was 12, I could speak 5 fluently." "That's impressive," Laura admitted, "but it doesn't explain everything. What happened after that? Why did you stop traveling with your parents?" Emma looked down, her voice dropping to almost a whisper. "Things changed. My parents, they got involved in something dangerous. They were working on a project, translating documents for an organization that claimed to promote peace. But it turned out they were hiding secrets. Dangerous secrets." Laura frowned. "What kind of secrets?" "I don't know all the details," Emma replied. "All I know is that one day my parents disappeared. Just like that. No warning, no explanation. I was left alone. I tried to keep living my life, but eventually I realized I wasn't safe either. Someone was watching me, following me. So I ran. I left everything behind and came here hoping to start over. There was a long pause as Laura processed what she'd just heard. Emma's story sounded far-fetched, almost too dramatic to believe, but there was something sincere about the way she spoke, a raw honesty that made it hard to dismiss. "Why didn't you tell me any of this when you started working here?" Laura asked finally. "I didn't think it mattered," Emma said. "I just wanted to do my job and stay invisible. I didn't want to bring attention to myself or to you and Ethan, but then I met Ethan and—" Her voice softened. "He reminded me of myself when I was younger. Quiet, observant, always listening. I thought maybe I could help him. Not because I'm some kind of expert, but because I understand what it's like to feel disconnected from the world." Laura sat silently, her thoughts racing. On one hand, Emma's secrecy bothered her. Trust was important, especially when it came to someone caring for her son. But on the other hand, she couldn't deny the progress Ethan was making. Over the past few weeks, he had become more engaged, more curious about the world around him. Could Emma's unconventional methods really be responsible for that? "You've been teaching Ethan 9 languages," Laura said slowly. "Do you honestly think that's helping him? Or are you just experimenting?" Emma shook her head. "It's not about the number of languages. It's about giving him tools to express himself. For some children, words come naturally. For others, like Ethan, it's harder. But everyone has their own way of connecting, with sounds, with patterns, with rhythm. Language is just another form of connection. I'm not trying to turn him into a polyglot. I'm trying to show him that communication is possible, even if it's different from how most people do it." Laura considered this for a moment. "And you're sure this isn't overwhelming him?" "No," Emma said firmly. "If anything, it's calming him. You've seen how focused he gets when we practice, how happy he looks when he masters a new word. He's thriving, Laura. Don't you see that?" Laura sighed, torn between caution and hope. "I do see it, but I also need to make sure I'm doing what's best for him. This is unconventional, to say the least." "I understand," Emma replied, "and I'll respect whatever decision you make. But please give it a little more time. Let me prove to you that this can work." Laura nodded reluctantly. "Fine. We'll keep going for now. But I want updates every day. I need to know exactly what you're teaching him and how he's responding." "Of course," Emma said, relief washing over her face. "Thank you, Laura. You won't regret this." Over the following weeks, Laura kept a close eye on Emma and Ethan. Each evening, Emma would report back on their progress, sharing stories of Ethan's growing confidence. He had started mimicking sounds more accurately, recognizing patterns in different languages, and even using simple phrases to ask for things. Once during dinner, he surprised Laura by saying "merci" after she handed him a glass of water. Another time, he pointed to a picture of a cat in a book and said gato, the Spanish word for cat. These small victories filled Laura with a mix of pride and wonder. She began to notice other changes in Ethan as well. He seemed less anxious, more eager to interact with those around him. Even his body language had shifted. He held himself differently, standing taller, looking people in the eye more often. It was as if a door inside him had opened, letting the world in bit by bit. Still, Laura couldn't fully shake her doubts. Was Emma's approach really the right one? Or was she simply indulging her son's quirks without addressing deeper issues? To get answers, she decided to consult an expert. Dr. Ryan Carter was a child psychologist known for his work with children on the autism spectrum. Laura had heard about him through a colleague and arranged for him to visit their home. When Ryan arrived, he was warm and professional, asking thoughtful questions about Ethan's behavior and development. After spending time observing Ethan and talking to both Laura and Emma, he offered his assessment. "Ethan is clearly making strides," Ryan said. "His ability to engage with multiple languages suggests a high level of cognitive flexibility, which is remarkable. However, I would caution against relying solely on non-traditional therapies. While Emma's methods seem to be benefiting him, it's important to balance them with evidence-based interventions." Laura nodded, feeling a pang of guilt. "So you think we're doing the wrong thing?" "Not necessarily. Ryan replied. But I would recommend incorporating additional strategies such as speech therapy and social skills training. These approaches can complement what Emma is doing and provide a more comprehensive support system for Ethan. Laura thanked Ryan for his advice, though his words left her uneasy. She trusted Emma, but she also knew she couldn't afford to ignore professional opinions. That night she lay awake wrestling with conflicting emotions. Should she follow Ryan's recommendations and pull back on Emma's lessons? Or should she trust her instincts and Emma's expertise and continue down this unconventional path in awe? The days that followed, Laura found herself paying closer attention to Emma. She noticed how patient she was with Ethan, how she adapted her teaching style to suit his needs. She saw the bond they shared, the quiet moments of joy and discovery that passed between them. And she realized something else. Emma wasn't just helping Ethan, she was changing Laura too. For years, Laura had poured all her energy into building her career, believing success was the key to happiness. But watching Emma interact with Ethan reminded her of something she'd forgotten, that true fulfillment came from connection, not accomplishments. Slowly, Laura began to let go of her rigid expectations, allowing herself to embrace the uncertainties of motherhood. She started spending more time with Ethan, joining him and Emma during their lessons and learning a few foreign words herself. One afternoon, as they practiced counting in Japanese, Ethan turned to Laura and said, "Okasan." The word meant mother, and though his pronunciation was shaky, the meaning was clear. Tears welled up in Laura's eyes as she hugged him tightly. In that moment, she felt a surge of gratitude, not just for Ethan, but for Emma as well. Despite her lingering doubts, Laura knew one thing for certain. Their lives were changing in ways she never could have imagined. And whether it was due to fate, chance, or something else entirely, she was determined to hold on to this newfound hope. As weeks turned into months, Ethan's progress became impossible to ignore. Laura watched in awe as her son began to blossom in ways she had never imagined. His once limited communication expanded beyond simple gestures and occasional words. Now he used bits of different languages to express himself, sometimes French, sometimes Spanish, sometimes even Japanese. It was as if each language gave him a new tool to navigate the world. Emma continued her lessons with Ethan, always tailoring them to his interests and abilities. She introduced songs from various cultures, teaching him melodies that carried the rhythm of foreign tongues. Ethan loved these sessions, clapping along to the beats and humming tunes under his breath. Slowly, he began to associate certain sounds with emotions: laughter with joy, soft tones with comfort, loud exclamations with excitement. For the first time, Laura felt like she was truly connecting with her son, understanding the way he experienced the world. But as Ethan flourished, Laura noticed subtle changes in Emma too. The housekeeper, who had always been kind and gentle, seemed quieter lately. Her smiles were less frequent, her laughter softer. At first, Laura chalked it up to exhaustion. After all, teaching a child 9 languages while managing a household wasn't easy. But then she started noticing other signs. Emma would pause mid-sentence during conversations, her eyes darting toward the window as if expecting something or someone. Sometimes, when the phone rang or the doorbell chimed, Emma flinched, her body tensing before relaxing again. One evening, after putting Ethan to bed, Laura decided to confront Emma about her behavior. They sat together in the kitchen, the faint hum of the refrigerator filling the silence between them. "Is everything okay?" Laura asked finally, her voice soft but direct. "You've seemed distracted lately." Emma hesitated, her fingers tracing the rim of her coffee mug. "I'm fine," she said, though her tone betrayed her words. "Just tired, I guess." Laura studied her carefully, noting the dark circles under her eyes and the slight tremor in her hands. "It's more than that, isn't it? You can tell me, Emma. Whatever it is, we'll figure it out together." Emma sighed, her shoulders slumping as if the weight of the world rested on them. "It's my past," she admitted. "The reason I left my country. I thought I'd escaped it, but—" She trailed off, shaking her head. "What happened?" Laura pressed gently. Emma took a deep breath, steadying herself. When I told you about my parents disappearing, I didn't give you the whole story. They weren't just working on harmless documents. They uncovered evidence of corruption, illegal activities involving powerful people. When they tried to expose it, they vanished, and now," her voice cracked. "Now I think those same people might have found me." Laura's heart sank. "Found you? Here? Are you sure?" "I don't know for certain," Emma replied. "But I received a letter last week. It was written in Cyrillic, addressed to me by name. There was no return address, no signature. Just a warning. Stop digging." That's all it said. A chill ran down Laura's spine. She had hired Emma to care for her son, not to bring danger into their lives. But at the same time, she couldn't imagine turning her away. Not after everything Emma had done for Ethan. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Laura asked, her voice tinged with frustration. "I didn't want to involve you," Emma said quickly. "Or Ethan. This is my problem, not yours. I thought if I stayed quiet, maybe they'd leave me alone." "Well, clearly that's not working," Laura said firmly. "If someone's threatening you, we need to deal with it together." Emma looked at her, tears glistening in her eyes. "You don't understand. These people, they're dangerous. If they find out I've talked to anyone—" "They won't," Laura interrupted. "Because we're going to handle this carefully. Do you trust me?" Emma nodded slowly. "Yes." "Good," Laura said. "Then let's start by figuring out who sent that letter, and why." The next day, Laura called Jack Monroe, an old acquaintance who worked as a private investigator. She had met him years ago through a business deal and remembered him as sharp, discreet, and resourceful. After explaining the situation over the phone, she arranged for him to visit the mansion later that afternoon. When Jack arrived, he greeted Laura with a firm handshake and a reassuring smile. He was in his late 40s, with salt and pepper hair and a calm demeanor that put people at ease. After introductions, Laura led him to the living room, where Emma waited nervously. "This is Emma," Laura said. "She's the one who needs your help." Jack nodded, pulling out a notebook. "Tell me everything," he said, his tone professional but kind. Emma recounted her story, starting with her parents' disappearance and ending with the mysterious letter. Jack listened intently, jotting down notes and asking occasional questions. When she finished, he leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. "This is serious," he said finally. "If what you're saying is true, then whoever's behind this won't stop until they silence you, or worse." Emma swallowed hard, her face pale. "What do I do?" "For now, lay low," Jack advised. "Don't go anywhere alone, and avoid using your real name online or in public. In the meantime, I'll look into the letter, see if I can trace its origin. If there's a pattern here, a connection to your past, we'll find it." Laura stepped forward, her voice steady. "And if they come after her, what then?" Jack met her gaze. "Then we protect her, and ourselves." Over the following days, tension filled the air in the Bennett household. Emma stayed close to home, rarely venturing outside except to take short walks in the garden. Laura kept a watchful eye on both Emma and Ethan, determined to shield them from harm. She canceled unnecessary meetings and spent most evenings at home, finding comfort in the familiar routines of family life. Despite the looming threat, Ethan continued to thrive. His bond with Emma grew stronger, their lessons becoming a source of joy rather than fear. One sunny afternoon, as they practiced greetings in Arabic, Ethan surprised Laura by running up to her and saying, "Ahlan, Mama." The phrase meant hello in Arabic, and though his pronunciation was imperfect, the sentiment was clear. Laura hugged him tightly, tears streaming down her face. "You're amazing, you know that?" she whispered, looking at both Ethan and Emma. "Both of you." Emma smiled faintly, though worry still lingered in her eyes. "He's the amazing one," she replied. "I'm just trying to help him find his voice." "And you are," Laura said firmly. "No matter what happens, don't forget that." Meanwhile, Jack worked tirelessly to uncover the truth behind Emma's past. He traced the letter's postmark to a small town in Eastern Europe and began digging into local records. What he found shocked him. A trail of missing persons, unsolved crimes, and shadowy connections leading back to a powerful organization known for silencing dissenters. The deeper he dug, the clearer it became that Emma's fears were justified. When Jack relayed his findings to Laura, she felt a mix of anger and determination. "We can't let them win," she said fiercely. "Not after everything Emma's done for us." "No, we can't," Jack agreed. "But we need to be smart about this. We'll gather evidence, build a case against them, and expose their operations. But it has to be done carefully, or none of us will be safe." Laura nodded, steeling herself for what lay ahead. She knew the road wouldn't be easy, but she also knew she couldn't turn back. Emma had given her family a gift, the gift of hope, and Laura was determined to repay her in kind. That night, as she tucked Ethan into bed, Laura kissed his forehead and whispered, "Everything's going to be okay, sweetheart. I promise." Whether she was speaking to him or to herself, she wasn't sure, but for the first time in weeks she believed it. The days that followed were tense. Laura could feel the weight of danger pressing down on them even though nothing had happened yet. She tried to keep things normal for Ethan's sake, but it was hard. Every knock at the door made her jump. Every phone call felt like a potential threat. Emma, too, seemed constantly on edge, flinching at every unexpected noise. Laura knew they couldn't stay in limbo forever. Jack had warned them that the people after Emma wouldn't stop until they got what they wanted. Silence, and silence in this case likely meant harm. They needed a plan, something to protect Emma and Ethan while Jack worked to expose the organization threatening them. One evening, after Ethan had gone to bed, Laura sat with Emma in the living room. The house was quiet, except for the soft ticking of the clock on the wall. Laura turned to Emma, her expression serious. "We need to get you and Ethan somewhere safe," she said. "At least for a little while." Emma's eyes widened. "No, I can't leave. What about you? What about the house?" "I'll be fine here," Laura replied firmly. "But you two are more important. If anything happened to either of you..." Her voice trailed off, choked with emotion. "I couldn't live with myself." Emma shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. "I don't want to run anymore. I've been running my whole life, and look where it's gotten me. Nowhere." "This isn't running," Laura said gently. "This is buying us time. Jack needs space to gather evidence and build a case against these people. Once he exposes them, you'll be free, for good." Emma hesitated, her hands trembling as she clasped them together. "And if they find us before then?" "They won't," Laura said, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her insides. "I have resources, connections. I'll make sure you're safe." For a long moment, Emma didn't say anything. Then finally she nodded. "Okay, but only because of Ethan." The next morning, Laura arranged for Emma and Ethan to stay at a secluded cabin in the mountains. It belonged to a trusted friend who owed her a favor, and it was far enough away from the city to provide privacy. Laura packed bags for both of them, filling them with clothes, books, and supplies. She also included a notebook filled with language, exercises Emma could use to continue teaching Ethan. When it came time to say goodbye, Laura knelt beside Ethan, holding his hands in hers. "You're going on a little trip with Emma," she explained, forcing a smile. "It's going to be fun. There's a big forest and you might even see some deer." Ethan tilted his head, clearly unsure. "Mama come?" he asked, his voice small. "Not right now," Laura replied, blinking back tears. "But I'll see you soon, okay? Very soon." Ethan frowned but nodded. He hugged her tightly, whispering, "Merhaba, Mama." The Turkish word for hello made Laura laugh through her tears. "Hello to you too, sweetheart." As Emma and Ethan drove away, Laura stood in the driveway, watching until the car disappeared around the bend. Her heart ached, but she reminded herself why she was doing this: for Ethan, for Emma, for their future. At the cabin, Emma and Ethan settled into a quiet routine. Days passed slowly, marked by walks in the woods, meals cooked over a crackling fire, and hours spent practicing languages. Despite the circumstances, Ethan seemed content. The peaceful surroundings suited him, and his bond with Emma grew even stronger. Each night, Emma called Laura to update her on how they were doing. Their conversations were brief but meaningful, filled with updates about Ethan's progress and reassurances that they were safe. Still, Laura couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. She checked in with Jack daily, eager for news about his investigation. Jack was making progress, though it wasn't fast enough for Laura's liking. He had uncovered financial records linking the organization to several illegal activities, including money laundering and bribery. But proving those crimes and connecting them to Emma's parents' disappearance was proving difficult. "These people are careful," Jack told her during one of their calls. "They cover their tracks well." "Well, we need to be better," Laura snapped, frustration bubbling over. "How much longer?" "I'm doing everything I can," Jack replied calmly. "But rushing this could put everyone in danger. Trust me, Laura, we'll get there." Laura sighed, rubbing her temples. "I hope so." Back at the mansion, Laura threw herself into work, using her company as a distraction. But no matter how busy she kept herself, her mind always drifted back to Emma and Ethan. She missed them terribly, especially Ethan's laughter and the way his face lit up when he learned something new. At night, she lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if she'd made the right decision. One afternoon, as she sorted through emails in her home office, the doorbell rang. Startled, she glanced at the clock. No one was supposed to visit today. Her stomach tightened as she walked to the front door. Through the peephole, she saw a man in a dark suit standing on her porch. His face was unfamiliar, but something about him set off alarm bells in her mind. She opened the door just a crack, keeping the chain lock in place. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice sharp. The man smiled politely, though his eyes were cold. "Good afternoon, Ms. Bennett. My name is Mr. Grayson. I represent an organization that would like to discuss a mutual concern." Laura's heart pounded. "I'm sorry, but I'm not interested. Have a nice day." Before she could close the door, the man spoke again. "It's about your housekeeper, Emma, and your son." Laura froze, her blood turning to ice. "I don't know what you're talking about." Mr. Grayson's smile widened, though it never reached his eyes. "Oh, I think you do. Perhaps we should talk inside?" "No," Laura said firmly, her voice shaking. "Leave now, or I'll call the police." The man's expression hardened. "That won't be necessary. But consider this, Ms. Bennett. Running won't solve your problems, neither will hiding. When we find them, and we will, you'll wish you'd cooperated." With that, he turned and walked away, leaving Laura trembling in the doorway. She locked the door behind him, her mind racing. How had they found her? Did they know where Emma and Ethan were? Panic surged through her, but she forced herself to stay calm. She grabbed her phone and dialed Jack's number. When he answered, she cut straight to the point. "They know," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Someone came to the house. They mentioned Emma and Ethan." There was a pause on the other end. "Are you safe?" Jack asked. "Yes, for now," Laura replied. "But we need to move faster. Please, Jack. Whatever you're doing, finish it, before it's too late." "I'm working on it," Jack assured her. "In the meantime, stay alert. Don't trust anyone." After hanging up, Laura paced the living room, her thoughts spinning. She hated feeling powerless, but she knew she had to trust Jack and herself to keep Emma and Ethan safe. Taking a deep breath, she picked up her laptop and began drafting a press release. If all else failed, she would go public, expose the organization herself. It was risky, but it might be their only chance. Meanwhile, at the cabin, Emma and Ethan were unaware of the danger closing in. One morning, as they sat by the fireplace practicing Italian phrases, Emma noticed a car pulling up the gravel driveway. Her heart skipped a beat. No one was supposed to visit. She grabbed Ethan's hand and pulled him toward the back door. "Come on," she whispered. "Let's go outside." They slipped into the woods, hiding among the trees as the car parked, near the cabin. Two men stepped out, their faces grim. Emma held her breath, praying they wouldn't spot them. After what felt like hours, the men finally left, muttering angrily. When they were gone, Emma sank to the ground, clutching Ethan close. Tears streamed down her face as she realized how close they had come to being caught. She whispered a silent prayer of thanks and vowed to do whatever it took to protect the boy she had come to love like her own. Later that night, Laura received a text from Emma. "They found us. We're okay, but we can't stay here." Laura's hand shook as she typed her reply. "I'll send someone to get you. Stay hidden." As she sent the message, she felt a surge of resolve. Whatever happened next, she would fight for her family, for Emma, for Ethan, because love was worth any risk. The message from Emma sent Laura into a frenzy. Her heart raced as she read the words over and over again. They found us. It was worse than she had feared. The people threatening Emma weren't just lurking in the shadows. They were actively hunting them, and now they were dangerously close. Laura immediately called Jack, her voice trembling with urgency. "They tracked Emma and Ethan to the cabin," she said. "She says they're okay for now, but we need to move them fast." Jack's tone was calm but firm. "I'll send someone to pick them up right away. A trusted contact of mine can take them to a safer location. But listen to me, Laura. You need to stay put. If they trace Emma back to you, it could put all of us in danger." "I understand," Laura replied, though her stomach churned at the thought of staying behind, while Emma and Ethan were in peril. "Just promise me they'll be safe." "They will be," Jack assured her. "Trust me." After hanging up, Laura paced the living room, clutching her phone like a lifeline. Every minute felt like an eternity. She wanted to call Emma again, to check on them, but she knew better. Too many calls might draw attention or give away their location. Instead, she sat by the window, staring out at the dark driveway, willing the nightmare to end. Meanwhile, in the woods near the cabin, Emma held Ethan close, shielding him from the cold night air. They had been hiding among the trees for hours, listening for any sign of movement. So far it was quiet, but Emma knew better than to let her guard down. She whispered soothing words to Ethan, trying to keep him calm despite the fear gnawing at her own heart. "It's going to be okay, sweetheart," she murmured, stroking his hair. "We're going somewhere safe soon. Just hold on a little longer." Ethan nodded, though his wide eyes betrayed his confusion. He didn't fully understand what was happening, but he could sense Emma's tension. He clung to her tightly, repeating one of the phrases she had taught him. "Non avere paura." Don't be afraid. Emma smiled faintly, touched by his attempt to comfort her. "You're so brave," she whispered, "just like your mama." As dawn broke, a car approached cautiously along the narrow forest road. Emma tensed, ready to flee deeper into the woods if necessary. But then she recognized the driver, a woman with short blonde hair and a kind face. It was Jack's contact, Sarah. Relief washed over Emma as she stood, helping Ethan to his feet. Sarah stepped out of the car, keeping her voice low. "Get in quickly. We don't have much time." Without hesitation, Emma ushered Ethan into the back seat and climbed in, beside him. As the car sped away, Emma allowed herself a moment of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they would make it through this. Back at the mansion, Laura waited anxiously for news. When Jack finally called, his voice was steady. "They're safe," he said. "Sarah has them at a secure location. No one knows where they are except me, and now you." Tears of relief streamed down Laura's face. "Thank you," she choked out. "Thank you so much." "There's still work to do," Jack reminded her. "But we're closer than ever to exposing these people. Hang tight, Laura. We're almost there." While Emma and Ethan remained hidden, Laura threw herself into preparations. She worked closely with Jack, reviewing evidence and strategizing next steps. The organization's crimes were vast and deeply entrenched, but Jack believed they had enough to bring it down, if they played their cards right. One evening, as Laura sifted through documents in her office, she came across a photo of Ethan, smiling brightly during one of his lessons with Emma. Her chest tightened with emotion. This wasn't just about protecting her family anymore. It was about justice. For Emma's parents, for others who had suffered at the hands of this corrupt organization, and for everyone who deserved a chance to live freely without fear. With renewed determination, Laura drafted a detailed plan. If Jack's investigation succeeded, they would release the evidence to the press, ensuring the world knew the truth. But if something went wrong, if the organization retaliated before they could act, Laura was prepared to go public herself. She had already written a statement, outlining everything she knew and naming names. It was risky, but she refused to back down. Days turned into weeks and the waiting became unbearable. Laura stayed in constant contact with Jack, receiving updates whenever possible. Meanwhile, Emma and Ethan adjusted to their new surroundings, a small, cozy apartment in a quiet neighborhood. Though isolated, they found solace in each other's company. Emma continued teaching Ethan, using language as a way to keep him engaged and hopeful. Together, they created stories in different tongues, imagining adventures in faraway lands. One day, as they practiced Russian, Ethan surprised Emma by saying, "Я люблю тебя," I love you. Emma's breath caught in her throat. She hugged him tightly, tears streaming down her face. "Я тоже люблю тебя," she replied. I love you too. In that moment, Emma realized how much Ethan had come to mean to her. He wasn't just a boy she cared for. He was family. And she would do anything to protect him. Finally, the day arrived when Jack called with good news. "We've gathered enough evidence," he said. "It's time to expose them." Laura's heart soared. "What happens next?" "We release the information to the media tonight," Jack explained. "By tomorrow morning, the story will be everywhere. Once the public knows what these people have done, they won't stand a chance." "And Emma?" Laura asked, her voice soft. "Will she be free?" "Yes," Jack replied. "Once this is over, she'll have nothing to fear." That night, Laura couldn't sleep. She stayed up watching the news, waiting for the story to break. Around midnight, it finally did. Headlines flashed across the screen, detailing the organization's crimes and naming its leaders. Social media erupted with outrage, and within hours, authorities announced an investigation. Laura exhaled a shaky breath, feeling a weight lift off her shoulders. It was over. Or at least, it was beginning to feel that way. The next morning, Laura drove to meet Emma and Ethan at the secure location. When she arrived, Emma was waiting outside, holding Ethan's hand. Tears filled Laura's eyes as she ran to them, pulling them both into a tight embrace. "You're safe," she whispered, her voice breaking. "You're finally safe." Emma nodded, her own tears falling freely. "Thank you, Laura, for everything." Laura shook her head. "No, thank you. You saved my son and me." As they stood together, surrounded by the promise of a brighter future, Laura felt a deep sense of gratitude. Through fear and uncertainty, they had found strength, not just in themselves, but in each other. And though the road ahead wouldn't always be easy, she knew they would face it together. For the first time in months, Laura allowed herself to believe in happiness. Real, lasting happiness, because sometimes even in the darkest moments, light finds a way to shine through. The weeks that followed the exposure of the organization were a whirlwind of change. News outlets couldn't stop talking about the scandal, and public outrage grew louder with each passing day. The leaders of the corrupt group were arrested, their crimes laid bare for the world to see. For Emma, it was a moment of vindication, a chance to finally lay her past to rest. Laura watched as the story unfolded on television, feeling a mix of relief and disbelief. It was surreal to think that the danger they had faced for so long was now over. But more than anything, she felt proud. Proud of Emma for her courage, proud of Ethan for his resilience, and proud of herself for standing up when it mattered most. Emma, too, struggled to process everything that had happened. She had spent years running from her past, afraid to trust anyone or let her guard down. But now, for the first time in her life, she felt free. Free from fear, free from hiding, and free to build a future, not just for herself, but for Ethan and Laura. One sunny afternoon, Laura decided it was time to celebrate. She invited Emma and Ethan to the garden behind the mansion, where she had set up a small picnic. There were sandwiches, fresh fruit, and lemonade, along with a colorful blanket spread out on the grass. As they sat together under the shade of a large oak tree, laughter filled the air. Ethan ran around chasing butterflies, his giggles echoing through the garden. Every now and then, he would call out words in different languages. Bonjour, hola, konnichiwa, making everyone smile. Watching him, Laura realized how far he had come. He wasn't just speaking, he was thriving. And it was all thanks to Emma. "You've done something incredible," Laura said, turning to Emma with a grateful smile. "I don't know how to thank you." Emma shook her head, her cheeks flushing slightly. "I didn't do it alone. You trusted me even when things got hard." That meant everything. Laura reached over and placed a hand on Emma's arm. "You're part of this family now, Emma. I want you to know that. Not just as Ethan's teacher, but as someone we love and care about." Tears welled up in Emma's eyes, but she blinked them away, smiling softly. "Thank you," she whispered. "That means more to me than you'll ever know." As the days turned into weeks, life began to settle into a new rhythm. Laura officially offered Emma a permanent position, not just as a housekeeper but as a caregiver and language tutor for Ethan. Emma accepted without hesitation, thrilled to continue working with the boy who had become like a son to her. Together, they explored new ways to help Ethan grow. They introduced art projects, music lessons, and outdoor activities, all designed to encourage creativity and self-expression. Ethan responded beautifully, surprising everyone with his progress. One evening, during a family dinner, he stood up and recited a short poem in 9 different languages. Each line flowed seamlessly into the next, showcasing not only his linguistic skills, but also his confidence. By the end, both Laura and Emma were in tears, overwhelmed with pride. Inspired by Ethan's journey, Laura decided to take her efforts a step further. She founded a nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting children with autism and their families. The foundation focused on innovative approaches to learning and development, including programs centered around language, art, and sensory experiences. Emma played a key role in designing these initiatives, drawing from her own experiences with Ethan. The response was overwhelming. Parents from across the country reached out, sharing stories of their struggles and triumphs. Many expressed gratitude for the resources and support the foundation provided, calling it a lifeline during difficult times. Seeing the impact they were making gave Laura a renewed sense of purpose, one that went beyond her business success. Despite the joy and progress, there were still moments of reflection. Late at night, when the house was quiet, Laura often found herself thinking about everything they had endured. She thought about the sacrifices Emma had made, the risks she had taken, and the strength she had shown. She thought about Ethan, whose quiet determination had inspired them all. And she thought about herself, the person she used to be versus the person she had become. One evening, as she tucked Ethan into bed, he looked up at her and said, "Mama, happy?" His voice was soft, almost hesitant. Laura smiled, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. "Yes, sweetheart. Very happy. Are you?" Ethan nodded, his blue eyes sparkling. "Happy with Emma. Happy with Mama." Laura kissed his cheek, her heart swelling with love. "I'm happy with you too, my brave boy." For Emma, the changes in her life were profound. She no longer felt like an outsider looking in. She belonged to a family, to a community, and to a purpose greater than herself. On weekends, she joined Laura and Ethan on outings to parks, museums, and farmers markets. They laughed together, learned together, and created memories that would last a lifetime. One Saturday morning, as they strolled through a bustling market, Ethan suddenly stopped in front of a stall selling handmade crafts. He picked up a small wooden bird and handed it to Emma. "For you," he said simply. Emma's eyes widened, touched by the gesture. "Thank you, Ethan. It's beautiful." Laura smiled, watching the exchange. Looks like someone's been practicing kindness along with his languages. Emma laughed, holding the bird close. He's full of surprises, isn't he? Months later, as autumn leaves painted the ground in shades of gold and red, the Bennett household buzzed with excitement. It was Ethan's 9th birthday, and Laura had planned a special celebration. Friends, neighbors, and members of the foundation gathered in the backyard, where tables were laden with food and decorations fluttered in the breeze. At the center of it all was Ethan, beaming with happiness as he opened presents and blew out candles on his cake. When it was time for speeches, Laura stood up, raising a glass. "To Ethan," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "Our amazing boy who reminds us every day that love, patience, and understanding can overcome anything." Everyone cheered, clapping loudly. As the party continued, Emma slipped away for a moment, stepping onto the porch to watch the sunset. Laura joined her, handing her a cup of hot cider. "Thinking about your parents?" Laura asked gently. Emma nodded, taking a sip of the warm drink. "Yeah, wondering what they'd think of all this." "They'd be proud," Laura said without hesitation. "Just like I am." Emma smiled, leaning against the railing. "Do you think we'll ever stop being surprised by how much Ethan grows?" "Not a chance," Laura replied with a laugh. "And I wouldn't have it any other way." As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Laura glanced at Emma and Ethan, who were laughing together inside. In that moment, she realized something important. Life wasn't perfect. It never would be. But it was full of moments like this, moments of connection and joy that made everything worthwhile. For Laura, Emma, and Ethan, the road ahead would always hold challenges. But they faced those challenges together, armed with love, hope, and the unshakable belief that they could overcome anything, as long as they had each other. And that, more than anything, was the greatest gift of all.